more effective and efficient.
I hope that the municipalities and the region will be consulted sincerely.
You have to listen to the people before you make changes.
Just months after the PCs took an axe to Toronto City Council, they announced plans to take a hard look at the government in 9 other areas of the province, and amalgamation of some areas isn't being ruled out. Ontario has a 2-tiered system of municipal governance. Upper-tier municipalities oversee things like policing. Lower-tier ones are in charge of bylaws. It's been this way since the 70s, so a change would be a big shakeup. These are the areas the government says it will review: Oxford County, Waterloo and Niagara to the south, Muskoka and Simcoe County to the north, and here in the GTA, Halton, York, Peel and Durham regions. In that collection, big cities like Brampton, Mississauga, Vaughan, Burlington and Markham, all of whom were at a mayor's meeting today here in Toronto, where the province's plans loomed large. City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly joins us now. And Lauren, a lot of questions about the possibility of a Toronto-style amalgamation or council cuts.
A lot of questions, but not a lot of answers just yet. It just so happened that Mayor John Tory, back right behind me, was meeting with mayors from across the Toronto and Hamilton region, including Bonnie Crombie from Mississauga and Patrick Brown from Brampton. And this group said they barely had any time to discuss the revelations about the province's new plan to review governance structures in different regions. Now, the Ford government says the goal of all of this is reviewing governance structures and how they deliver services, and this could mean big changes down the road, and these mayors want to say.
I hope that this will be a healthy conversation. I just say I hope that the municipalities and the region will be consulted sincerely as this process unfolds.
If, in fact, we are talking about a province that wants to, and a government that wants to deal and introduce a modern approach to governing for the people, then you have to listen to the people before you make changes.
This is an opportunity to look at how we can do things more effectively and more efficiently, and I made no secret that I think there are inefficiencies and duplication in 2 levels of government.
Now, in Crombie's case as mayor of Mississauga, she's referring to Mississauga, Brampton and Caledon, all under that umbrella of Peel region in this 2-tier system. Dwight?
All right, Lauren, this broad review follows the province's focus on Toronto City Council over the summer. We saw what happened there. Could similar cuts happen elsewhere?
Well, the province actually first mentioned the possibility of this review coming up when they were talking about those sweeping cuts in Toronto. So no surprise, there's a lot of speculation that something similar could be happening in different municipalities across the province now. So the question is, what could the province actually change here? Could they also reduce the size of councils elsewhere, or could they amalgamate different municipalities, much like how Premier Mike Harris did back in the day in 1998 when it came to Toronto's amalgamation? Now, we asked Municipal Affairs Minister Steve Clark if that type of merger is on the table now.
Existing in the Municipal Act, there's always an opportunity for 2 municipalities to come together to talk about that aspect, but we're not talking about that in this regional government review.
Even so, it does seem that anything is on the table now, given how early we are in this process. Now, the province, I should note, is planning consultation. That is a promise that they have made, which is in stark contrast to how they handled their council cuts in Toronto. Those were a surprise, and they came in the middle of an election when Mayor John Tory was running for a 2nd term.
Fact is, there's a very different process already that we know about being employed here, which is instead of an arbitrary announcement coming at the 11th hour, you have a consultative process that is beginning today to ask about how the governance changes should be made.
The Ford government has also lined up 2 special advisors for this review, and their report is expected in the summer. Dwight?
All right, Lauren, thank you. Now, officially, the province didn't mention the word amalgamation, but it's clearly where many people's heads immediately go when they hear of this news. So we headed to Peel region to Square One in Mississauga to see how that idea would go over.
There can be advantages to that, just kind of making it easier for the government and other aspects to that.
I don't see any positives to that, really.
There is benefits, obviously, with the money being saved, but
I think the cons would kind of, at least from what I could tell, outweigh any positives. I think each city has their own problems to deal with, whether it be of transit or anything along those lines, and to combine them would be combine those problems, and which means they wouldn't be prioritized where they should be.
Now, for as long as Ontario has had both local governments and regional governments, there has been talk of amalgamations. Many in Toronto can still remember the debates caused when the Mike Harris government introduced Bill 103, the act to create a mega city here. One of those people, our Mike Wise, covered many of those protests over 20 years ago. And Mike, what can we learn from looking back at that experience?
Dwight, I know both you and I were out covering many of those protests, people taking to the streets. They were so passionate about the differing opinions about the pros and cons of amalgamation, what it would mean for local decision making. Now, keep in mind, in the mid-90s, it was the Toronto municipalities at first that were calling for the metro level of government to be scrapped, only to see the Mike Harris government introduce plans to merge Toronto's 6 municipalities instead into that megacity. So as we said, that was met with protests, community groups, coalitions forming against the idea. It eventually led to a referendum being held by the cities that made up metropolitan Toronto. Support was divided in the city, opposition strongest downtown, many metro councillors in the suburbs in favor of it. Now, when the results came out, they were 3-1 opposed to the idea. There were marches to Queen's Park calling on the government to respect the results. It chose instead to interpret the results less as people being upset with amalgamation and more as a signal that people were just upset with provincial government policies. And in the end, Toronto was amalgamated 21 years ago, January 1st, 1998. Now, a few years later, the PCs went ahead with amalgamating 4 other municipalities: Hamilton, Ottawa, Sudbury, and Kawartha Lakes. One word of caution here the PCs may want to consider is that the decision to amalgamate may have cost them politically. They lost a few high-profile seats in Toronto the year after amalgamation in the 1999 election and were wiped out across the GTA in the 2003 election. In fact, they would be shut out of Toronto for another 12 years. Dwight?
Thank you, Mike. It looks like a post-secondary fee cut is coming to the province. Ontario is set to announce that it is cutting university and college tuition fees by 10%. It would take effect for the 2019-2020 school year and then freeze the next year. The government says it would save the average university student about $660 and the average college student about $340.
Mr. C. Prasad. Yes. Mr. Figueroa.
It was a vote that changed Guyana and this MP's life, a controversial decision that had people threatening him so much he fled to Canada. Coming up, reaction from the Guyanese community here in Toronto, where some are calling him a hero and others a traitor.
I believe that what he did was in fact from his heart. I believe that the party leaders were betrayed. I believe that the parliament was betrayed. And I believe that the people of Guyana were betrayed.
A tragic start to the day here. Early this morning, a person was crushed by a garbage truck in an alleyway downtown. The victim may have been a homeless person sleeping in the alley. Linda Ward brings us the story.
Toronto police roped off this entire area around 6 o'clock this morning. That's when they got a call that a person had been run over by a garbage truck in this laneway here at University in Adelaide. First responders tried to save the person's life to no avail. The duty inspector spoke about the circumstances surrounding this collision this morning.
The preliminary information that we have at this point in time is that the person may have been sleeping in the alleyway. Obviously, a garbage truck is a very big vehicle, and if you're hit by a garbage truck, the person was obviously hurt very badly, very quickly.
The Commercial Vehicle Inspections Unit is now examining the truck. The driver, we are told, is in shock. He's being interviewed by police. We also spoke with the building operator, who says it would have been very difficult to see if someone had been lying in the laneway.
I was a homeless person. We constantly kept breaking the person up and telling them to move, because drivers, when they're backing up, they can't see that at angle.
The person's identity has not yet been confirmed, but Garreau tells us that homeless people typically lie on the steam grate in the alley to try and escape the cold.
It's sad to see something like that happen. People are trying to keep warm in any way they can, right? So, unfortunately, we try to help and do our best here by getting these people just to move out of the way, go somewhere else.
The coroner removed the body shortly after the incident for examination. Police are now doing collision reconstruction, and they're looking for video from this laneway to try to determine what happened. Linda Ward, CBC News, Toronto.
Charges have been laid against a Markham man in connection with a suspected sexual assault and extortion. 24-year-old Brandon McKinnon was arrested back in December. York Regional Police alleged that he sexually assaulted a young teenage girl and then began extorting her. Police searched his home and found child pornography. They also say he had taken videos of women through the windows of their homes. These are all allegations so far. Investigators believe there are more victims out there. They're asking anyone with information to come forward. Harm reduction workers are warning people about a scary drug circulating on our streets. It's being sold as fentanyl. It's dyed dark purple to look like the powerful opioid, but frontline workers say users are experiencing a very different high.
The reactions that people are having is not typical of an opiate reaction, and so we don't know what it is, and it's causing people to hallucinate, disassociate, not have an understanding of time, not be able to move parts of their bodies. It can go on anywhere from 25 minutes to 4 hours is what we're hearing. So right now we put out a bad drug alert just through the Toronto Overdose Prevention Society, just to let people know and inform them, to avoid it. If they are going to use with somebody, make sure somebody is there when they're using, use it as sight and carry naloxone. But this particular, hallucinating, naloxone won't do much for hallucination. So,
Toronto Public Health is also sounding the alarm, saying the mystery drug may also be sold as heroin.
We have to make sure we understand how, it's not just about how we're teaching them, but it's about making sure we understand how we learn from the artists. As the organization, it has to go both ways.
She's the new artistic director of Soul Pepper. Coming up, I speak to Wayne Mengesha about her plans for the theater company. And the roller coaster ride continues. Call it back to seasonal out there.
Yeah, it's right. And it is a roller coaster ride, though, Dwight, because we're also seeing this kind of flip-flop of things in terms of temperatures should be falling through the overnight. They're actually kind of rising as we go through the overnight hours. And then you'd expect them to rise through the day tomorrow, but they'll be coming down. And it all has to do with the cold front moving through and the winds and how they're going to change direction. I'll walk you through all of that. Right now, our current temperature in Toronto is -2, Markham at -1, 0 in Oshawa. That temperature will be nearly steady or maybe even drop and then start to come up. And those winds from the southwest still, that's why it's more seasonal, and we're talking about milder temperatures. Now, some of the winds, the gusts will be stronger than this into tomorrow morning as well. We could see some wind gusts of 40, maybe 45 kilometers an hour. We do have a wind chill. Even if it's coming from the southwest, we can still get a wind chill. But watch what happens as we go towards tomorrow morning. Those winds first turn to the west, then the northwest, and that's what's going to have an impact on our temperature. So we'll actually see it plummeting for us through the day tomorrow. A little bit of flurry activity certainly possible too as these winds come across the lakes, but then a clearing trend into tomorrow afternoon. Very quickly, just showing you then -2 coming up towards about 0 to 1 tomorrow morning, and then by the afternoon the temperature goes back down to -4, Dwight.
And the ride continues. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
Workers at a Whitby company that supplies parts to GM Oshawa have walked off the job in solidarity with GM workers who are facing job losses when the auto company closes the plant this year. That comes as the Premier meets face-to-face with General Motors executives in Detroit. CBC Windsor's Katerina Georgieva is live for us there tonight. Katerina, what do we know about this protest?
Well, it's all part of an effort to get GM's attention. Intiva Products is a company that creates interior parts for the plant in Oshawa, as well as another plant in Michigan. And according to Unifor National President Jerry Dias, this walkout is already affecting production in Oshawa, and it is expected to last until tomorrow morning. But at a news conference in Detroit earlier today, Dias says there's more to come.
So our members are in Intiva today are demonstrating. Our members of Intiva are getting General Motors attention. And I'm here to tell you that we will get General Motors attention again tomorrow. And we will get General Motors attention again on Thursday, and we'll get their attention again on Friday. Because though Mary Bear and others keep saying, sorry, the decision is final, we don't view it that way at all.
So I asked him if that meant that the union had orchestrated today's walkout, and he just said that the union would support whatever its members decided to do.
Katarina, you were over in Detroit today where Premier Doug Ford also met with the GM execs. What do we know about that meeting?
Well, Ford says that it went well, and he went in there hoping to preserve some jobs, or at the very least keep the plant open a little bit longer, because he has already said that he believes that this decision is a done deal. So have a listen to what he said as he left the meeting.
It went all right. I asked 3-4 times about extending it for 9 months. What I got out of General Motors is they're going to be growing here in Ontario, which is important. They're going to be growing in other sectors, the high-tech sector, out in Markham, also in Oshawa. The Kami plant, they aren't going anywhere, and neither is St. Catharines. But we had a long, good discussion. I'll discuss that further with you folks.
He later issued a statement to say that he's disappointed that the decision is not being reversed, but that he will continue to support the workers in Oshawa. And Jerry Dias was happy to see the Premier step up to the plate to support workers. And he said again and again that the union is going to fight to the bitter end on this, and that Dias still expects GM to reverse its decision. Dwight.
Katarina Georgieva joining us live from Windsor tonight. Thank you, Katarina.
Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys. Boys will be boys.
It's the new ad for Gillette razors, and it's a controversial one. Coming up, we'll tell you how the razor company is tweaking its famous tagline and creating a buzz about it. That's coming up after the break.
Some already are.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
A new ad for Gillette is provoking a backlash at a time when the Me Too movement is changing the conversation around masculinity. The spot challenges men to change their behavior and set a better example. But as Eli Glasner tells us, some men are so angry about it, they're boycotting Gillette razors.
Is this the best a man can get?
The new ad cuts to the idea of what it means to be a man,
Boys will be boys.
repositioning Gillette's tagline to take a stand against toxic masculinity. Online, the ad quickly racked up millions of views and a backlash. Actor James Woods tweeted about the razor company jumping on the, quote, "Men are horrible" campaign. In London, Piers Morgan added his voice.
Men are fed up with this. They are fed up with being told how awful we are all day. We're fed up with it, sorry.
Soon, customers who don't like mixing politics with smooth chins started chucking their razors.
Nowadays, being in the middle, it gets you no attention. Attention is the oxygen of marketing. If you want to be out there, you have to pick a side.
Former ad executive Tony Chapman says Gillette would have expected that kind of reaction. He thinks the ad is a brilliant way to confront the brand's history.
You know, clean-shaven face is your pathway to having sex and getting kissed by a beautiful woman. They felt they had permission to play there. And in doing so, they're taking a very hard pivot for the brand. And with that comes both risk and reward.
It's pretty smartly done, eh?
Author Rachel Giza is skeptical when companies appear to be socially conscious. But she says the fact that it makes business sense is significant.
The fact that this ad exists suggests that this critique and rethink about masculinity has become so much a part of the cultural conversation that a company thinks that an ad like this will resonate with men.
Gillette is just the latest in a string of brands to challenge customers. When Nike embraced NFL player Colin Kaepernick, customers set their shoes on fire. But
We followed their share price, their sales, the affinity for the brand. All of these things have been very positive since they made that move.
And while the new ad is rubbing some men the wrong way, Chapman says Gillette is actually targeting women who make the majority of household purchases. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
A year ago, the reputation of Toronto's beloved Soul Pepper was in peril. The theater company and its artistic director, Albert Schultz, were facing 4 lawsuits around allegations of sexual harassment and abuse. Now, those allegations sent shockwaves through the theater community and were settled out of court this past summer. Today, Soul Pepper has new leadership, including artistic director Wendy Mengesha. I spoke with her about her vision for the company and how she plans to reflect our city on the stage. We'll start with welcome home.
Thank you.
Nice to have you back. You know, we got that brain drain to the south. It's always nice when our artists come back home. So
I'm happy to be home.
And you were home to kind of where you started. What was your connection here in the beginning?
You know, it was right after we did The Kink in My Hair at the Mirvishes, and some of the artists from Soul Pepper came to see that show, and then the Academy was just being announced as a new program. And I joined the Academy the following year, so 12 years ago.
Why did you want to come back to Toronto and take this job? Because it's not going to be an easy one.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be an easy one, but I'm not afraid of that. And I think that's been a part of my history, is like sometimes taking on some challenging things, you know, for things that I believe in. And I'm passionate about what this institution can do, and it can really champion Canadian voices, and that's happening already in Toronto, as we were talking about, with like so many in music and so many different sectors. We're thriving, and I want to be a part of that movement, and I really believe that we can be a part of the world stage.
You've been able to take diverse stories and then make them into something that a wider audience really wants to take part of. You did that with The Kink, you did that with Kim's Convenience. Is that something you're going to be focusing on here, getting our diverse voices, which on the world stage right now is really popular coming out of Toronto, and kind of getting a wider audiences to come and enjoy that?
One thing that I've always stood by is I want to tell stories that are important to the community that I'm in right now, social issues that shine a light on what's relevant in our time and place. So I think that's why those shows took off. And I also think that it's about translation and authentic translation. People, at least, you know, Trey and Ince, the writers of those plays, were speaking from a very personal place, and we were supporting them in a way with diverse artists. It's not just who's on stage and who's writing, but who's creating, who's directing, who's designing. And so all the translation was considered through a lens that reflected that story. So I think that's important.
Given what this theater company has gone through, how do you make the public see the changes here?
just continue to use this facility as a meeting place, you know. Right away, we're setting up an open house, February 4th. It's open to the public. We have performances. We have points of dialogue, as you'll see, creative ways that we're getting people to sort of engage with us at this open house.
And those are the access points you're talking about, getting people in?
Yeah, these are access points we're talking about, because it's not just about what's on our stages. It's this beautiful facility that's, you know, for the city. And so we want to activate it all year round, and we want to invite people in all the time so that they feel like it's their home and it's their theater, and they feel inspired and empowered to talk to us about what they want to see on the stages.
In this age of #MeToo, and you as a young, diverse woman in this industry, I mean, I think for people to see you at the head of this theater company is a boon, is a bonus. I think a lot of people are going to be positive about that, but there's going to be a lot of weight on your shoulders because they're going to be like looking to you. You're the boss.
Yeah, I'm used to that. When I first started as a director professionally, I was also one of the few Black women who was directing, and I've kind of been used to being the one in the room.
Kind of trailblazing your way through this
and
career,
that's okay,
and you still take it on tasks that live up to that.
Yeah, and that's okay, because, you know, even when I went to university and there wasn't a lot of Black Canadian female monologues to audition with, I thought to myself, I'm switching to the directing program.
Yeah, you create your own, I think.
Create my own. And maybe I don't get to act in those shows, but my children will, you know?
Yeah.
And that's important, and I want to be a part of the change. And yeah, it's an honor to be a part of that change.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Welcome back. We're excited to see what Soul Pepper has to offer going forward with you at the helm.
Thank you. Come on down.
I will.
While pot license lottery winners are scrambling to complete their applications before Friday's deadline, many third-party companies with deep pockets and plenty of resources are stepping up to offer their help. I'm Greg Ross. Today I spoke with a man who runs one of those companies. We'll have his story coming up.
A Canadian and member of the Guyanese parliament has caused a political storm in that country. Charandas Prasad voted against his own government in a no-confidence motion. He then fled to Toronto after many called him a traitor. Lisa Shing has this exclusive story.
Mr. C. Prasad. Yes. Mr. Figueroa.
The moment that changed the course of Guyanese politics.
Correct yourself. Correct it. No.
A few days before Christmas, MP Charandas Prasad voted against his own government in favor of the opposition's no-confidence motion. Parliament was at a standstill for minutes as confusion ensued.
Mr. C. Prasad.
No.
Said yes.
Charandas. No. You gotta vote again.
The ruling coalition had a one-seat majority, so Prasad's vote effectively triggered an early election.
I was not very calm. I was frozen.
Why did you decide to vote against your own government?
When it came down, I had to speak out. They have provided no job. University students come out with a degree and they got to sit down and watch walls.
You were nervous.
Yes, I'm very nervous.
Prasad is also a Canadian citizen. He spent the night of the vote in hiding at Canada's High Commission before boarding a plane for Toronto, where he's now living with family. Here in the GTA, it's been impossible for him to keep a low profile. He's been the buzz of the Guyanese community at home and abroad.
The parliamentarian Charandas Prasad dropped a time bomb with his significant yes.
It's dominating the Guyanese news cycle. Video of the vote has gone viral. People have even written songs about it.
Charandas said yes. Now the coalition government is one man less.
But he knows me, yes. The entire Guyanese community will know. At least the face is not something that can hide anymore.
And everyone has something to say, reflecting political tension that's further complicated by racial division. Indo-Guyanese largely support Prasad.
I believe that what he did was in fact from his heart.
Most Afro-Guyanese say he's a traitor.
I think it's treasonous. I believe that the parliament was betrayed, and I believe that the people of Guyana were betrayed.
Prasad maintains his vote was for the Guyanese people. What comes next for you?
I am still thinking I could go back. I may want to form a political party.
That could be a ways off. The coalition government hasn't dissolved parliament. It's challenging the no-confidence vote in court, but that's not stopping Prasad from rallying support here while he's waiting. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Dalton McGuinty's former chief of staff has abandoned his appeal after being sentenced for his part in the gas plant scandal, but it's not yet clear if David Livingston has served his time. Court documents show Livingston gave up his appeal back in September. The court confirmed that in November, but his lawyer won't say whether Livingston has served his 4-month sentence. He was found guilty of unauthorized use of a computer last year. The judge at the time said he directed the wiping of government hard drives after the Liberals decided to scrap the building of 2 gas plants ahead of the 2011 election. It's been a busy week for the 25 winners of Ontario's retail cannabis licenses. They have until Friday to complete a lengthy application process as well as secure financing. The problem is the winners were chosen randomly and not all have retail experience. That's why some cannabis companies are looking to partner with the lucky few. Greg Ross joins us live from Dundas and Manning now. And Greg, you spoke to the president of a company that's out there actually searching for these lottery winners.
That's right, Dwight. This is a company that says they have spent tens of thousands of dollars to try and stay ahead of the game when it comes to retail marijuana. The president of that company, Kobe Smitillo, is an original partner in a company called Indiva. Now, that's a licensed pot producer. Now, when the government said that they weren't going to allow licensed pot producers to get into the retail game, well, they started a new company with the sole intention of obtaining some of those retail pot licenses. And they also went out and leased a number of retail locations like this one right behind me on Dundas Street West, with the hopes of one day opening a retail pot shop right here.
Somebody could
move into a space like this one.
That's
downtown
right.
Toronto.
Yeah, we
ready to go.
Ready to go. We selected the space based on it being in an awesome location, good traffic, and then also the space is very well designed.
Kobe Smitillo is the president of Retail Go. They hold leases on 11 locations across the province, like this downtown Toronto location, all part of a much bigger plan hatched months ago that they had hoped would put them at the front of the line when it came to applying for retail marijuana licenses.
We've hired security consultants, architectural firm, a design firm to work with us on the fixturing, branding marketing agency, and this was all in reliance on the government actually publishing statements about what the licensing requirements would be.
But that all changed when the Progressive Conservative government instead turned to a lottery process to decide who would be eligible for a license. It forced Retail Go to change its business model as well.
At a minimum, we'd like to see that see the light of day. So we are making that available to the lottery winners, and we're in discussions with a few of them.
You've got everything worked out to the point where somebody could just walk in and it's ready to go.
Turnkey solution, if that's what they would like.
But Smitillo says Retail Go is facing serious competition from other cannabis producers making lucrative offers.
Saying, hey, here's a few $1 million, thanks very much.
I didn't expect to win, so I didn't prepare myself.
Clint Sukaran was awarded one of 6 licenses in the GTA. He's now working with a consulting firm to meet Friday's deadline, and he says the firm has received multiple proposals to partner with him. Are you able to help somebody with financing as well?
Yes, we have access to financial resources. We've raised some money, and then we have some financial partners.
Now, the Ontario government has stipulated that retail marijuana businesses won't be allowed to hold a license if a cannabis producer owns more than 9.9% in that company. Now, in addition to that, lottery winners must also retain primary ownership of their licenses. So at this point, Dwight, it's not clear how these pot producers are going to get around those regulations.
Yeah, if we want to get rid of the black market, it seems we're not off to a great start yet. Thank you for that, Greg.
With so many food apps nowadays delivering from so many restaurants, it can be hard to save on food. And that's become a problem with many millennials.
I like Uber Eats, I like Skip the Dishes.
I feel like I'm always worried about not having time to cook.
You think it's convenient. It's inconvenient when you realize how much money you don't have after the month.
Coming up, I'll tell you just how much some millennials are spending on food every month and what one money expert suggests.
British lawmakers have defeated Prime Minister Theresa May's Brexit divorce deal by a crushing margin. It has triggered political chaos that could lead to a disorderly exit from the EU. Briar Stewart explains.
Prime Minister Theresa May woke up this morning knowing that her withdrawal agreement was likely going to be defeated, but the results tonight were really resounding. 432 MPs voted against it, just 202 voted for it. And that is really a historic result in terms of a government vote being defeated. So what Theresa May has to do now is to come back to Parliament within 3 days with some kind of plan B. And it's going to be very difficult for her if she's going to try to find a way to salvage this deal, because she would need another 118 MPs to get on side in order to try to take it to a second vote. Now, it's understood that she's going to be meeting with European officials over the next couple of days. And she's also talked about how she's going to be reaching out to other party leaders to try to come up with some more consensus.
If the House confirms its confidence in this government, I will then hold meetings with my colleagues, our confidence and supply partner, the DUP, and senior parliamentarians from across the House to identify what would be required to secure the backing of the House.
But before she comes back to Parliament with some kind of plan B, she and the Conservative government have another hurdle to face, and that's a no-confidence vote, which is going to take place tomorrow. The leader of the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn, tabled it today. There's going to be a debate tomorrow and then the vote. It's very likely that that no-confidence motion will be defeated. That's because it appears that May and her fellow Conservatives have enough support in the House now to survive, but it is really going to be a very tumultuous time over the next couple of months. She had been negotiating this deal with EU officials for so long, so it's not clear what more she can do at this point to satisfy both EU officials and to try to gain more support for it in the House. And of course, there is a big deadline here, March 29th. That's when the UK is supposed to leave the EU. And the longer this uncertainty goes on without some kind of formal deal, the more likely it could be that the UK could leave the EU with no deal whatsoever. Briar Stewart, CBC News, London.
As we head to break, here's a look at where the markets closed today. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Saving money is a problem for many millennials, and experts say it's because they are overspending on food. It may have something to do with how easy it is to order dinner with an app on your phone. Kelda Ewan has more.
When Leslie Hacker, a Toronto millennial, began taking a closer look at her finances, she noticed she was spending
approximately $1,000 a month
on food. And she's not alone. Many millennials are finding themselves overspending on the same thing.
We've been going out like every meal right now, so.
I spend a lot of money on food, actually.
For Hacker, a lot of those meals are ordered through her phone.
I like Uber Eats and this one.
Skip the dishes?
Yeah, I like the Starbucks app too, actually. It's fast. When it's just me, a single person, it's harder to cook, I find. And it's like there's less motivation.
But it also comes at a cost.
There's the delivery fee, and then you have to tip the drivers.
Jessica Morehouse, a financial counselor who works with millennials, says she's noticed the trend.
Most of the time when I'm talking with clients, I'm like, so you're spending like $500 on eating out every month. Are you happy with that? Most of the time they're like, no, I wish I could use that money to go towards my emergency fund, paying down debt, go on an amazing trip.
But Morehouse, a millennial herself, says she also understands why her generation is spending more on food than previous ones.
We're kind of in that crunch time in our lives, whereas, Gen Xers and baby boomers have kind of, maybe the kids are out of the house, they've kind of got a little bit more time.
I feel like I'm always worried about not having time to cook.
So what is a time-starved millennial to do? Morehouse suggests ordering meal prep kits like Chef's Plate that have all the ingredients ready and is also cheaper.
So it really is that good like middle ground if you're looking for something to kind of help you with your budget, eat healthy, and just help you with those kind of time constraints.
Morehouse also says the first thing to do is to track your spending for a few months to identify patterns. As for how much you should be spending on food, she says 10 to 20% of your gross income is a good starting point. And she says if you really want to save, it's best to delete those apps. But that might be a bit harder.
No. No.
It's too hard.
Yeah, I don't think. Maybe one day, I hope.
Kelda Yoon, CBC News, Toronto.
Things will be different.
So the millennials are eating out, not cooking at home. Go figure, call it.
Well, I'm not guilty of being a millennial. That's obvious. But I'm guilty of using some of those apps
I
myself
think we all
too.
are.
Yeah, especially during the work week, I find it is just sometimes a little bit too easy. All right, I don't know how easy you find this weather pattern when we're trying to look at things reverse. So instead of the temperatures going down through the overnight hours, they're going to be coming up, and then they're going to be falling through the day tomorrow. These are the current readings: -2 in Toronto and Mississauga, Hamilton -3, St. Catharines at -2. The winds coming in, they're still coming from a southwesterly direction because we're out ahead of a cold front. As that cold front comes through, the winds are going to turn around to the west and then northwest, and that's why we're seeing this sort of flip-flop with how our temperatures are rolling. So this is what it feels like, almost -10 in some cases. Well, in fact, it is -10 in some cases with the wind chill. Satellite and radar imagery not picking up some of the light flurry activity, a little bit of even patchy light snow that we've seen sort of off and on around the GTA. The strong winds from the northwest will bring some lake effects, but they're going to stay closer to the lake shores because they're not going to last very long. The winds will be heavy into tomorrow morning and then be easing by tomorrow afternoon. We could see some flurries. I do have some in the forecast for scattered flurries, but otherwise that's just tonight into tomorrow morning. Really, we get into a pretty decent clearing trend through the afternoon hours tomorrow. Those winds southwest turn to the northwest. They'll be gusty, and then by tomorrow afternoon already starting to ease off, so we don't have to live with it too long. -2, -3, some of the overnight lows. Tomorrow morning coming up to 0 to 1 degree, and then the temperature falling off in the afternoon and being driven down to -4 to -5 and feeling colder than that. So a real change in departure in those temperatures towards the weekend. I do want to mention Saturday. It looks like we could have a chance of seeing a snowstorm coming through. It's kind of early to be looking at the accumulations. We're going to keep tweaking this, Dwight, as we get closer towards the weekend.
We know you'll keep an eye on it for us. Thanks, Colette.
I'm doing that.
Take 100 ukulele students, put them on stage with a member of the Bare Naked Ladies, and what do you get? Music magic, of course. It's how the Doane U School, founded in part by Canadian singer-songwriter Melanie Doane, chose to celebrate its first single, and they invited our cameras to come along. Take a look.
Well, we're here today to launch the track Joy to the World that's been recorded by the Bare Naked Ladies and Melanie Doane U School.
This U School program has been established now for 10 years in Toronto. We started with 8 kids, but we're now teaching over 850 students on a weekly basis.
It gives them a chance to excel and to be in a group setting and work together. I owe what I do now to that, but more than anything, it was a chance for me to work in a group, you know, be on a team.
Let's rehearse the D scale. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
I think the coolest part of today was just hanging out with my friends and spreading positivity among everybody.
It's soccer, swimming, and I like music more. Just, you know, a lot more people, it connects people, and it's a great experience overall.
Well, the best part of the song was when we all sang together. It was so much fun, and we all just had a great time.
Here's the coolest part of the song, the riff.
Music education is essential, and that's why we're doing this. A lot of children do not have access to music programs, and our program is reaching kids from Etobicoke to Scarborough, and we're trying to be in neighborhoods where maybe there aren't a lot of opportunities.
The great thing about the uke thing is ukes are cheap. You know, a school can get together and one uke costs $40. And what's great about that is more kids get to play music.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Now to an update on a story we brought you last week. It's about the latest performer who will be pulling a song she recorded with R. Kelly from streaming services. Yelena is here with the details. You and I have been talking about this off the screen, and we kind of felt this one was coming. So is it Lady Gaga or is it Celine?
It's Celine.
Okay.
So Celine Dion, and a lot of people are familiar with this song because it really was a big mega hit for her. This is I'm Your Angel, and I'll give you a little bit of a look at Celine. There you go. So, you know, this is all in light of the documentary series, of course, Surviving R. Kelly, premiered earlier this month, and it just details the years of Kelly's alleged abuse and predatory behavior, which he does deny, but nonetheless, now CBC, we reached out to Sony Music Canada, representative confirmed they have, quote, received instructions from Celine Dion's management to proceed to remove I'm Your Angel from streaming services. Now, it is still available, so this is in process right now. This is a track from Dion's 1998 holiday album, These Are Special Times. It is written and produced by Kelly, and so, you know, when the song originally came out, it was #1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for 6 weeks, sold over 1.5 million copies. It was also nominated for a Grammy in 1999. So yeah, it was pretty a big hit, really. So she said, yes, I'm going to be pulling this song. Now, last week we saw that pop star Lady Gaga went even further because not only did she pull the single, this is from 2013, Do What You Want With My Body, which features her with Kelly, but she also apologized. She apologized and said that she really stands behind the message that all of the women in the documentary share, and that she supports them. So that's something that we saw, and so the heat just obviously increased for other artists to do that. We know that we already saw Chance the Rapper, Phoenix, and Nick Cannon apologize for working with Kelly, and they also issued messages of support for the victims who have opened up about their experiences. So yeah, now Celine Dion is the latest to do so.
You know, we talk about whether you can separate the artist from the art, and this is one of those cases because it seemed the art reflected what was going on in the background. If you watch the documentary, a lot of people just can't in this case.
Yeah, a lot of people are sort of now saying, was he hiding in plain sight?
Really?
When you look at the lyrics, yeah. So it's one that is just a really, really sad and challenging, difficult situation.
And it's going to keep going. The Oscars, they don't have a host, but the Grammys do, and I think I like who they announced today.
I
Yelena.
think a lot of people are going to like it because she brings a lot of very pumped up, fun energy. I'm talking about Alicia Keys. Have a listen.
Alicia Keys, you are going to be the host of the 2019 Grammy Awards.
Are you serious? All right, but wait, what if I don't want to do it?
She wants to do it, Dwayne. She's going to do it. And, you know, this is a woman who already has, get this, 15 Grammys to her name. And, you know, beyond that, because everybody knows she's this powerhouse performer and she can sing, obviously.
Right, everything.
But, yeah, she's been very, very active with charities. You know, she even worked in Canada with the Stephen Lewis Foundation, the economic impacts of HIV. She's with Keep a Child Alive. So she's just really on it when it comes to social issues. A lot of people will be excited to see her watch and host the Grammy Awards. That's February 10th. It's going to be in LA, and that's going to be a really exciting show to watch. A lot of women nominated this year, so I think it's fitting that Alicia Keys gets to host.
I'm a fan.
It'll be great.
Thanks, Yelena.
See you soon.
This is a story that proves the library is about much more than just books. One librarian in the West End said she helped a patron go from homeless to successfully landing a job, and she spoke to us about being part of this very happy ending.
We would see him here during the days. He would mostly rest and enjoy a comfortable, safe space to be. And one day, soon later, he shared that I wouldn't be seeing him anymore. Kind of broke my heart because he became one of my favorite patrons to talk to and converse with. He shared he found a home and he'd be moving soon, and that I wouldn't get to see him anymore. Working at the library is not always the easiest thing to do. Surprise! But just hearing that our help actually made a huge impact on his life for the positive made it worthwhile, that all the effort that we do have goes to a good place.
Last week, her tweet about the experience went viral. Batu has been working at the library for 20 years, and she says the best part of her job is getting to know the regulars and seeing relationships between staff and patrons grow. And I've actually ran into people. I spent a lot of time at Yorkwoods Library growing up, and I've ran into people later in the year that said, I remember seeing you at the library. I'm sure you were a library rat too.
Yes, I was a bit of a library rat. My sister used to work at the library at Queens, so
there you go. Shout out to all the librarians out there. All right, what's coming up with this roller coaster ride? Tomorrow, what did you say? We are going back up, or
we're going up
yes.
overnight, and then we're coming down during the day tomorrow. So it's sort of the opposite of what you would normally have on a temperature ride. So overnight tonight, -2. That's through the overnight hours, but by morning we'll be up to around 0 or 1 degree to start the day. By afternoon, the temperature falls to -4. Could have some flurries in the earlier part of the day, but then a clearing trend as we get into the afternoon.
And you're keeping an eye on the weekend because that snow might come Saturday, Sunday.
Yeah, system developing in the States. We got to watch this one because it's the track that's going to matter so much to us. If it comes a little bit further north, that's going to add to the kind of accumulations we could see of snowfall. So it's really far out there, but like 10 to 25 is the kind of range we're looking at. Yeah, that's right.
All right, that's it for us tonight. Have a great night, everybody. Colin and I will see you back here tomorrow.